we have an opportunity every new moon to do some kind of new beginning and to empty out, etc. And I love all of these stories. And I love these cycles and rhythms of things. But then I read this thing on Facebook that said that the 48 hours, the first 48 hours of a new moon is the best time for you to do your wishing. And it was in one of these posts where the woman had taken a photograph of a check that she had made out to herself, where the amount was unlimited and it was for everything to be answered by the universe, etc. And she put it out there as one of those normal Western manifestation exercises. But it was, and I get all that. I mean, I get that system of manifestation. We've done it ourselves. But when she said 48 hours from the new moon is the best time for wishing, my system kind of went into a spasm about, I didn't know whether I was laughing inside or crying inside or what was going on, because it just felt like such a huge big fat lie. And it took me by surprise that I was having that reaction, because I think my relationship with the moon is fairly normal. When it's full, I want to scream and howl and throw a tantrum. And when it's new, I'm, yawning and sleeping, really ready to pass out. But this reaction about timing, there were two things. The one was that if you wish, and this is mythology, if you wish within the first 48 hours of a new moon, then your wish will be granted, as if spirit is not listening the rest of the time, as if your higher self is on vacation the rest of the time, as if everything else that we teach about manifestation and frequency and harmony and synchronicity is non-existent the rest of the time. And then this understanding that at new moon is when you should do your wishing in the first place, as if any aspect of a moon's cycle is in disharmony to being and doing human, when our very lives are dependent on this. But after I'd gotten over that, underneath that, and always there's an underneath, what struck me was how we tell ourselves these stories. And then we sell those stories to other people as a way of getting agreement, endorsement, to entrench something that may or may not be true. That we create these stories. I mean, we know Thomas Aquinas, for example, catalogs the hierarchy of angels. And he sold us this theory. And of course, forevermore, we are using this, and we understand that there is a hierarchy of spirit. As if, you can get promoted from one level of angel to another. As if all of that is set in exactly the same egotistical system as it is here. And so we frame, and that's the word I eventually wound up with, that we frame things in a particular way. And when we frame it, we actually put a thick, fat boundary around it, exactly like a picture, and it is contained in that. It is set in that. It cannot shift. It cannot change. And here's this woman putting on Facebook that if you wish within the first 48 hours of a new moon, then your wish is guaranteed to be answered. Oh! And she'd framed it. It was there, and nobody was questioning it. Nobody was saying, where did you get this? How do you know that? Can you validate it? Substantiate it? Get a little skeptical about how ludicrous it sounds from a spiritual perspective. It might sound perfectly normal. Actually, even on an ego plane system, it doesn't sound perfectly normal for me. Not anymore. So I look at this and how we frame things. Every story that we tell ourselves inside is a framing. Now we've talked about this somewhere along the line, where how we frame others. Now we know that when we say we're framing somebody else, we're actually setting them up for the fall, right? We're setting them up to take responsibility, to take the blame, never to take the credit. We don't frame others to take the credit. But we do frame subjects, stories, issues, understandings of things so that we can take the credit, which then puts framing strictly on an ego plane system. It is strictly an ego playing game. And then one of the things that I've noticed with framing is the way we compliment people. So my client said to me today, I was so intrigued, I had to come and see you. I hear you're exceptionally good. And she gave me that look that said, well, now you best live up to it. And I thought, you're setting me up. Immediately. It was like so clear. You're setting me up. And we do this every day. We do this all the time. I do it when I phone somebody and I say, well, actually I've been referred to you by so-and-so. And I understand that you're competent at this or that, and therefore I'm calling you. So we set a standard already to which they're supposed to meet. They're supposed to fulfill the obligations of a standard that is actually your expectation and understanding of it, because you haven't experienced them yet. So I said to my client, I'm glad that somebody has given you such a wonderful opinion of me. I'm not accustomed to living up to other people's opinions or by other people's opinions. And that's what we do. We use our opinions to frame things, to create a story, to tell a drama. And we are all dramatists. I mean, over here is one of the biggest dramatists we know. We are all dramatists. We love the story. We love the drama. But when we frame it to suit ourselves, to suit our requirements, to suit our egotistical needs, what we're doing to it is removing the context and the truth of it that lives behind it. So if we look at a picture, for example, every picture in this room tells a story. And some people will know the story just by looking at it because the picture holds a story. And it's framed in that, and that's how it's going to look forever and ever. Amen. But behind the picture is another story. And behind that story is another story. And yet another story. In fact, every picture holds a multitude of possibilities beyond the frame. When we framed it, we're focusing it in on just that, because we don't want to see the aerial or holistic view of it. And in fact, we want to persuade others to agree with just that. And what we know about the spiritual world generally is nothing, absolutely nothing, falls into the category of just that. It is never just that. We are constantly having to connect the dots to make sense of that in the context of this or the other. Nothing exists by itself. And when we frame something and we are taking out all of its connectedness or attempting to contain or hide all of its connectedness, we're actually depleting it, reducing it, which goes against the grain of its spiritual nature, of its understanding of itself. And we do that to ourselves, we do that to people, we do that to circumstances, and of course we do it archetypally, where we give people stereotypes, or we say you're such a drama queen, And of course we reduce you and we frame you, because just that label is a framing. It's a containing. It's a given understanding or a focused way of understanding something or someone. And what it turns into when it gets disconnected from everything else is a lie. So I have a whole new understanding of what is a lie now. A lie is anything that is disconnected from its essential nature. Anything that is disconnected from itself as it is before your ego started to interfere with it. Before your nonsense, your reasonableness, before your sensibility, before anything about you interfered with it, its essential nature, the essence of it is. So when we're having this discussion now with Damir about his friend and Lou, right? About the chap who took their money and won with their money and didn't give it back, we're essentially talking about the nature of someone. And that person's nature is different from ours. Not wrong, but different. Yeah, different. it's so hard. Because the truth of something, just that is the truth, is neither right nor wrong. It just is. At its essence, that's what it is. And on this plane, on this physical illusionary plane, we have to have the full variety. So if we take all the judgments out of it and we allow something to be itself at its essence, then that is what it is. And if we understand or work with it as its essence, without the framing, without the realigning and reassessing and reevaluating and making stories around it, without complicating it, and we just work with it as it is, what happens to us? Why don't we do that? Why do we always want the more around it? Other than the drama, we validate ourselves. We validate ourselves with the framing. The framing is our way of showing the world that we know something, that we understand something, that we learned something, that we are managing or controlling something. That's what the framing is. If you take a picture down to the framers, they'll measure it, they'll take charge of the picture. The picture becomes an entity, it becomes an item. It is no longer anything else. When they put a frame on it, suddenly it becomes more. Suddenly it has more value even. And that's what we're doing with everything. And that's what we're doing when we bring meaning to things as well. Even when we create meaning around something, we're framing it in a way that makes sense to us. So I walk around the house and everything has a story. Everything has a sentimental value and what one might call an attachment to it. It might have no value on the monetary level, but it has sentimental value, sentimental attachment, and it is always framed with a story. And the only person to whom that story has any value whatsoever would be me. Nobody else. If I sat you down and told you a story about everything in this room, for example, you would be bored out of your mind, bored to tears within moments. My body might get all excited with the remembrance of the experiences and the feeling and all of that it had at that time, but in the end, they're just stories. And stories are a dime a dozen. What we need to start doing instead is living the essence. But how real and how full will we feel if we live just the essence of something? If living the essence of something, now when we use essential oils, they say use 1 drop and everybody always uses 5. As if they won't be able to smell it if they use just the 1 drop, yeah? We make everything excessive in the world. We think we'll get it better, we'll understand it better, we'll know it better, we'll feel it more. We always go in search of the more and the bigger context because that will validate it, that will make its presence felt. And in doing so, we completely undermine and even denigrate or demean or lose the real feeling of the presence. So if we lived just the essence of something, if we just took out all of the drama and all of the framing and went to the essence of it, we might actually then feel the more of it, the absolute more of it, or the all of it. Now, where are we doing all of this framing? Sometimes, like when we're talking about the gate guy, right? I can be so irritated with you, I can give you all of the bad stuff about him, all the ways in which he irritated me, and completely forget that on the other hand of that, I actually think he's a good guy. That there's seriously nothing wrong with him. That he gets on his high horse and gets all totally human from time to time. And so this balanced view leaves me having to go looking for really what was it that pressed his buttons. And somewhere along the way I have to realize that it actually had nothing to do with me. I might be the recipient, but actually it's got nothing to do with me. And the minute I'm going, it had nothing to do with me, part of me wants to get mad about, so why was I the recipient? And then the other part of me wants to get mad about, so why was it here? You know, the why. It's completely nonsensical that something's that got absolutely nothing to do with you is happening in your space. But if we're listening to the universe and we're connecting the dots, and we realize that everything is connected anyway, then there's nothing that's got absolutely nothing to do with you. And there is nothing that is happening elsewhere from you. Nothing that is happening elsewhere from you. So we have to start paying attention to all of these behaviors, right through from that behavior of wish for whatever you want within the first 48 hours of the new moon, all the way through different ways of framing things in the world that create separation and disconnect the dots. Because that's what we do all the time in our own defensive way of managing the world. We disconnect things. We isolate things. So when the doorbell is not working, I feel completely disconnected. When it is working and all and sundry feels free to press it, I get completely irritated. This is us. This is who we are. At the core, I want the doorbell to work actually, because I feel better irritated with all and sundry ringing it than the people who need to ring it being unable to do so. The ramifications and the consequences of not being able to ring the doorbell and not knowing that it's not working when you ring it are greater than having everybody just ring it. So we have to do this balancing act inside of us and pull out all of the stories and go down to what is true without judgment, without me putting all of this emotional context in it. What is true in terms of what do I need? What do I want? What do I require of this? In other words, what is the essence of it for me? Now we're in the year of living intentionally. To maintain an intention is hard work when you're in the midst of an experience. That's half the work actually, maintaining the intention. Creating it is easy. Maintaining it is the hard work. Recognizing all of these ways of justifying getting off track, of justifying not maintaining the intention, not following through, of getting disconnected, is one way in which we maintain the intention. Okay, Patty says, hurry up, Granny, we want to go. There's impatience. Impatience and timing. See, this is like all part of the same thing. Because in our impatience, we make snap judgments. We leap to conclusions. We get a lot of exercise doing that. And again, it's a different way of deciding something, concluding something so that our comfort zones are okay. One of the things that I see very regularly with my clients is, and we talk about this as resistance here, is that they go into resistance to what I'm saying, and actually they come from a space that I would love to just call it denial. But I can't. I can't, because sometimes they really don't know. They really don't see things from that perspective. And sometimes it's just what we call cognitive dissonance, where I've introduced an idea and it's so foreign to them that they can't see it at all. And I find myself having to explain an entire concept in order to explain what I've just said. And even when I'm doing that, I have to be very careful about staying on the line, staying on intention about what I'm explaining, and not going off at a tangent and explaining a whole psychological concept and leaving them more confused. Now, when we do this in our lives, this intention begins to evolve with us. But the essence of it is what we need to maintain as we go. We know that life is a process. We know it's a journey. We know it's unfolding, and that we have to stay on track with that spiral. But the essence that keeps that spiral going is what's important. And that's why we always have to take out all of the frills and fancies and fripperies and come back to the essence with which we started. So before all of you were born, about 50 million years ago, and before all of you were born into this lifetime about 75 years ago, I'm just being rude now. Yes. See? Time. Who knows? It feels like about 60 years, maybe it was 102, who knows? Before we were born, we created a contract with self and the universe. And that contract is at the essence of every intention that you set in this lifetime. Whether you're setting the intention to manifest something, or setting the intention to be creative in some sphere of your life, or to make a change, that intention must come from somewhere and flow through you and flow with you in this process to somewhere. So what agreement are you working with? Where is that truth of you? When we take out all of the frames, take out all of the pictures of you as you've been growing, take out all of the understanding of you as this, that, and the other, and just go to I am soul, unlimited, no frame, unlimited. The essence of me is light. What does that light want to shine on? Here. The essence of me is intelligence. What does that intelligence want to understand? Here. And if we keep it that basic, half of life will not have to be lived. Half of life will not have to be experienced, or realigned with, or remembered, or transformed, because we'd be living from the essence. And there'll be no books to read, and no movies to watch, nothing to do for learning. The process of evolution itself will be so speeded up that the spiral will flow into itself faster and faster and faster, accelerated growth. So now we know why we created the complications and why we keep creating the complications. It keeps us busy. It gives us something to do with ourselves. And the world is full of that, full of stimuli. And in the midst of all of that, you still have to make soul sense of what's going on with you. So what is going on with you? What have you framed in your life that actually ultimately leaves the responsibility for who you are elsewhere, in something or somebody else's hands, while you are merely going along with this particular context and environment? You're looking too serious over there, Lou. What are you thinking?
No, just
Okay. Now we all have theories about life, which are frames. We have philosophies about life, frames. Even spirituality is a frame. And we have to start getting rid of all of those boundaries that in fact limit us. Then you can wish at any time of the moon, and even wishing won't be required. That's what our unlimited beings, selves, know. And rationally we can subscribe to the theory, which itself is a frame. Nobody sitting in the room has ever had the experience of being so completely so that there are no boundaries, no limitations between self and all of the creative intelligence that is. Nobody. And so we know it as a theory, and it is framed in a particular way with particular words. When we do things from a time perspective, the moon cycle is every 28 days. There is our frame. Everything properly in placement. Everything understood in a particular sensible way. And everything that doesn't fall inside of that becomes nonsensical, insensible, unreasonable even. We use all of these words to make it less, instead of going to the essence of it and allowing it to expand from there. So my very real concern with this system of overthinking and complicating life is that when we do that, we never quite reach the essence of ourselves, that we create layers around ourselves and new frames around ourselves that set us apart or separate us from who we really are, making the art of manifestation or co-creation with the universe an essentially complicated business. So in the Gita there is a story where Krishna is talking to Arjuna about the art of war. That the best possible way to win a battle, to win the war itself, battle after battle, and this was the 100-year war, right? They've kind of crammed a whole lot into a lot less time, but that was how long that battle was supposed to have lasted. Don't ask how all of those men survived all 100 years to tell the whole story, because I know you're going to ask that next. This is mythology. Okay. So here's Krishna teaching Arjuna everything that he needs to know about life. That is what the Bhagavad Gita is about. How to live a full life. And in it, he is talking about how to win a battle. That to win the battle, you must firstly know what it is you want. Lao Tzu, was it Lao Tzu? Who wrote The Art of War?
Lao Tzu.
Yeah? So The Art of War talks about the same thing. That here you are. First you must know what it is you are going to battle for. And that that battle exists inside of you, long before it exists outside of you. That every battle must be won on the inside. That the focus, that if you're going to shoot an arrow, where it's going to land is determined inside out. And of course, the accuracy of shooting an arrow is determined by that particular focus. That if you are going to be in charge of men, hundreds and thousands of men, that you become the focus. And in turn, you are then able to lead them all into maintaining their focus so that their arrows meet their mark. We don't go to battle to kill. We go to battle to liberate. Anybody who goes to war for the joy or the pleasure of killing something has lost already, mustn't even bother. But if we go to battle in order to liberate others, in order to bring the truth into being, then of course we are already working with an advantage, because the truth itself, the essence of what you are going to battle for, awaits you. And so the 100-year war is in fact a journey of a man's conscience, a man's realization of himself by going through the cycles of his own life and learning how to live it while living it. And that's what we're all doing. We're all learning how to live better while living. There is no other way to do it. You can sit on a mountain and meditate for the rest of your life, and then you walk into a city and get shocked out of your mind. The only way to learn how to live fully is to live fully. Shall we meditate? Yes.